My name is Lindsay Thomas, and as stated, I was one of the last people to share time with Julie while she was here on planet Earth, unknowingly at the time.
Unknown caller.
Julie and John were our neighbors. We lived on Geneva Drive. Andrew Marsh is my partner, and John and Julie lived right next door, and we were very close friends, still are. And that morning, as all of us experienced in these mountains, the water just kept rising, like to degrees that we could have just never even fathomed. So Andrew and I are looking out the windows and just seeing the water rise and rise and rise. John and Julie, I imagine, were doing the same, and they left and tried to get out. They were not able to due to landslides and falling trees. And Andrew and I had gone over to their property and were doing some damage mitigation and looking around and noticing that their property was not in good shape either. So when they came back through the driveway, Andrew ran over and invited them over to our house so that we could all kind of hunker down together and just be together and weather the storm together. So the intensity was rising, the stress
What time was this?
was rising. This was probably about 9 a.m., 8:45 a.m. that they came
27th.
over. Yes, the morning of the 27th. So the intensity was rising. Andrew and John were in and out of the house, working really hard, trying to save the foundation of the home. The water had risen to a point that we had never seen before. Up into the engines, up around the house, where we all were acknowledging that this is not a good situation, but we're glad to be together, and we're just gonna be here. So when I get stressed out, I like to make tea and coffee for people, and drink coffee and tea. So that was my solution at the moment, was to make coffee. Julie loves coffee, loved coffee. So made French press coffee, cream. At first she said she did not want any sweetness in it, and then took a sip and was like, actually, do you have any honey or sugar? So we had some honey that one of our friend's grandmother had recently harvested. So we started talking about apiaries and honey and farms and wildflowers, and those that know Julie know that those are things very close to her heart. Her imagination is just so beautiful and creative and inspiring. So we were kind of hanging out, sipping coffee, watching our partners come in and out, and then it got to the point that there was kind of that shift of no one's gonna go outside anymore, it's not safe. And the water just kept coming and rising and coming. While all this was happening, my dog, who is very enthusiastic, we'll call it, she barks a lot with people she doesn't know, was in the back bedroom just to keep things kind of at bay. And we were getting ready to introduce her to Julie. She hadn't met Julie before. And I went back and was with her, and John and Julie and Andrew were in the front of the house, and that is when the landslide hit. So I was not with them at the time, I was with Piper. So their stories are obviously different than mine. Everyone had a different experience, but I went down and into the water, and initially was kind of fighting. That will to live was very active, of pushing and trying to get out. And then there was a very quick pivot of kind of acknowledging, I hadn't called it a landslide in my brain, but I knew that the chances of survival in such a situation were very unlikely. So there was kind of a surrender and an acceptance to the fact that it seemed as if I was in the process of dying. So I just surrendered and kind of went into a place of prayer and gratitude for my life. I prayed that my family would find me, my friends would find me, and just kind of softened and stopped fighting. And that's about when I was propelled out of the water and flew through the air and landed on a tree.
You were in the house before, right?
Yes.
And got flushed out?
Yep.
While holding your dog.
No.
No.
So Piper was
Okay.
next to me when it happened, and she went down too. she had her whole trajectory as well. And naturally, it was like so much pressure coming into contact with a lot of different objects and things. No breathing, lots of water, lots of mud, lots of boulders. The landslide was about 300 feet wide and 60 feet tall is our estimate. It was absolutely massive. So yeah, we popped out about, I mean, it wasn't quite a fourth of a mile down from the house, but approaching that. Those that know the area, it's like past the bridge to Geneva Drive, down further than that. And John and Andrew and I popped up, and we immediately were looking around for Julie.
So the three of y'all were together then, but not.
On the pile, yes. Once we popped up, it was a pile of rubble, the remnants of our house. My son's car was upside down very close to John. A refrigerator, like it was just very hard to really conceive what was happening. It was obviously like catastrophic.